and it's unfortunate, but yeah, it started with that Jacques Rougeau situation. And like I said, the way Jacques was telling the story, like he was proud of what he did to Dynamite. Alright, y'all, so this episode of Dark Side of the Ring concludes. I guess this is the mid-season finale, and they're going to continue on in a few more months. So I got to play catch-up myself, because the only ones that I've seen, of course, is this one, The Ultimate Warrior, and the one on Brian Pillman. So I got to catch up on the other ones. So yeah, today I'm going to be talking Dark Side of the Ring episode, The Dynamite Kid. I believe that's the name of the episode, but it's about the Dynamite Kid. So yeah, y'all, as many of you may know, I'm a big wrestling fan of the 80s and the 90s. You know what I'm saying? Attitude Era is my favorite era, but I grew up, in the 80s. So Hogan, Savage, all those guys. And of course, the British Bulldogs, okay? I was a big British Bulldog fan, like from, I say 84 to like 87 or 88. British Bulldogs was on top, especially the Dynamite Kid. Now, I really didn't fuck with Davey Boy Smith, even though he was the powerhouse, but Dynamite Kid was just so explosive and intense, you know what I'm saying? And he was a little guy. I mean, he was a solid dude, man, but he was not that big, but he was just explosive. So, yeah, I was always more Dynamite Kid than I was Davey Boy Smith. But this documentary chronicles the rise, the fall, and the tragic ending of the Dynamite Kid, whose real name is Tommy. I'm bad with names, y'all. Tommy is his first name. That's all I can tell you. So yeah, this is almost like a classic. Not a classic, but this is a cliche now with wrestlers. You have the steroids, the drugs, the abuse, and the decline, and then they wrestle longer than they should, and then they end up getting injured, and then they die. This is the story of a lot of wrestlers, and Dynamite Kid is definitely. He was one of those, he was confined to a wheelchair at one point. Like, he went from being at WrestleMania 3, biggest stage in the world, and now he's confined to a wheelchair, just a shell of himself. And it was just sad to watch. So you figure with the story like the Dynamite Kid, this would be a hit piece, but it wasn't. His family spoke in there, his wife and his kids. And it's cool because his wife, she could have bashed him and said, like, yeah, he abused me, he did all this and that to me. But she made sure to make it clear that it was the head trauma, okay? It was the not PTSD. What's that shit called? CTE, okay? I guess he suffered from CTE, the steroid abuse, the drug abuse, depression. You know what I'm saying? He had a lot of issues going on, and that's what caused him to spiral out of control like he did. So not at one point did she ever say, well, he was a horrible person, he was a terrible person. She always praised him for being a good husband and a good father, even to her kids. Her kids didn't know that he was the way he was until they got older, and then they did a piece on Chris Benoit, and that's when she was like, well, that's the same thing your father did to me. And it's kind of funny because Chris Benoit was a mirror image of the Dynamite Kid. If you remember Chris Benoit, he had his whole style. Matter of fact, Dynamite Kid was like his inspiration and his idol, and I think he even mentored him for a little bit. So Chris Benoit was a modern-day Dynamite Kid, and unfortunately he suffered the same fate because he was heavily into steroids, and he ended up killing his whole family and killed himself, you know what I mean? So Dynamite Kid didn't go that far, but he almost did. And the most interesting part of the documentary was when he talked about when they talked about the situation that happened between him and Jacques Rougeau from the Rougeau brothers. And I always kind of heard little bits and pieces of it, but I never knew the full story. But hearing Jacques Rougeau talk about it, he almost had like this sinister kind of grin on him, like, yeah, I got that motherfucker. I don't want to say it was in poor taste. I guess if you was in his position, you would feel that type of way too. So basically, he was known as a prankster. He would talk a lot of shit. He rubbed some of the guys wrong. And as he was about to sit down and play cards with Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, Dynamite Kid comes from behind and snuffs him. Bow! Knocks him out. Kicks him, stomps him out. Bloody mess. Face looks like fucking hamburger, okay? He did it in front of all the boys. So for a while, he couldn't face the boys. He was fucked up behind it, and he had to get some payback on them. So according to him, Jacques Rougeau, he was advised by his dad to get a couple of rows of quarters from the bank. And when Dynamite came in, sipping a coffee, didn't know what was coming, cracked him, knocked out 4 of his teeth, fucked him up. And of course, Dynamite wants to retaliate, but then word on the street was that if he did retaliate and mess up Jacques Rougeau, that the Mafia was going to come after him, because Jacques Rougeau, I guess, had some ties with the Mafia, and he passed the message through Dino Bravo, who definitely had ties with the Mafia. So Dynamite was kind of he was in a situation where he couldn't do anything about it, or else he would be a dead man. So he had to take that L, and they said that's when everything started kind of going downhill from there. Left the WWF, started doing a lot of independent stuff, and then injured himself where he couldn't wrestle no more, and then eventually got confined to a wheelchair. That's basically the story of the Dynamite Kid in a nutshell, and it's unfortunate, but yeah, it started with that Jacques Rougeau situation, and like I said, the way Jacques was telling the story, like, he was proud of what he did to Dynamite. But according to another source, which is in the doc, he said that it wasn't a roll of quarters, it was actually brass knuckles, knocked out 4 of his teeth. So yeah, this is an interesting watch, and nothing really shocking, because a lot of these wrestlers go through this. A lot of these guys that we grew up idolizing and seeing as larger-than-life figures, these are flawed human beings. And there was even a quote in the episode where they said, you know, these people that we put on a pedestal because they're great at a particular thing, but not knowing that these are human beings, that even though they're great at this thing, they may not be as good as far as other things, like being a person, you know what I'm saying? But because they're so good at what they do, they just throw themselves right into that, and that's what Dynamite did. You know, he wasn't a perfect person, you know, none of us are, but because of, I guess, where he fell short, he really excelled in what he loved, and that was wrestling. But it cost everything, his family, his life, everything. It's a sad story, but it's also, you know, interesting, because I was a fan of the Dynamite Kid back in the day, and the British Bulldogs, you know, before Davey went solo. I was just curious why Brett, because he was Brett's brother-in-law, so maybe they couldn't get Brett, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, but I feel like Brett could have probably added something to it, maybe. Or maybe Brett didn't know about a lot what was going on. You know, Brett was probably out of the loop of a lot of the things that was going on with Dynamite, so that's probably what it was. But anyways, y'all, this was a good watch. I recommend you watch it. I know I spoiled some shit. But anyways, feel free to check it out. If you have watched it, comment freely below what you thought about the Dynamite Kid episode of Dark Side of the Ring. This is a cool documentary series. I recommend you check it out if you haven't already. So that's it, and that's all. If you like and dig this content, hit that like and subscribe, notification bell in the corner. This is Rashad G signing out. See you in the next video.